Welcome back to video number 3. If nothing changes, nothing changes. I think this is a great quote to remember because you're watching this most likely because you want to see change. You want to see growth. You want to be better tomorrow than where you are today. And the truth is, though, like if nothing changes, then nothing is going to change. And so we're going to look at step number 3 on how you can become a better leader starting immediately today. So step number 3, improve what you do routinely. Step number 3 is improve what you do routinely. The truth is, like, we can have all these things we want to do in our life, and we can say that we have these dreams and these goals, and we want to get better at this and get better at that. And there are times when there are actions we can take, and we can do one thing and have like a lot of growth immediately. The truth is, a lot of growth will come incrementally. And so I really want us to be prepared to be successful in the long haul. So let's take a look at what are the things that we do routinely. Yes, you will start seeing growth quickly in some ways, but when we take a close look at what we do routinely, we'll also see sustained growth over a long period of time. Let's jump in and look at the first item on improving what we do routinely. And of course, let's start with habits. Habits. What are your habits? Show me a person who has big dreams but bad habits, and I'll show you a person who will never achieve those dreams. Show me a person who has big dreams and great habits. That's a person who's likely to achieve their dreams. So let's look at your habits a little bit. Low-hanging fruit alert. One of the quickest things you can do to become a better leader and start seeing fruit from that quickly is to look at your morning routine. Morning routines. These are really important. Again, if you look at very successful people, they typically have a very self-disciplined morning routine. So what makes a great morning routine? For me personally, one of the things that has been a value for me for many years is waking up early. I have realized that if you want to get things done without a lot of interruptions, you need to wake up before the rest of the world, basically. If you start doing your most important things at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., guess what? The rest of the world is awake at that time as well, and you're going to have interruptions. People may be stopping by, asking you questions, that you may be getting those phone calls, those text messages, those emails may start blowing up on you. So wake up early and do the most important things first. So wake up early, set an alarm, don't hit the snooze button. When it says wake up, spend time doing whatever's the biggest deal to you. So if it's something personal like prayer, it's working on your first project first, do those things first thing. Be sure you eat right, be sure you get exercise, do these things first thing in the morning. If you're not doing these things, this is really low-hanging fruit for you. If you're just waking up late, you're rushing to your first appointment or school or work. If you just start waking up early, so you're not rushed, you're going to start seeing immediate benefits immediately. Another nice thing about waking up early and doing your most important things first is that regardless of what kind of interruptions your day will hold for you, if you've done the most important thing, then you've done the most important thing and you can weather those interruptions better. But if you're telling yourself like, hey, as soon as I get into the office, then I'm going to do my most important thing. Well, the truth is we can't always control the office environment, and you may have a lot of interruptions waiting for you. So do the most important thing first. The next habit we need to look at is our ability to prioritize. While you may have a lot of important things to do, you may have a lot of urgent things to do, not everything is equally important. Stephen Covey's 4 quadrants. You can look at your digital booklet on what those quadrants are, but we need to be wise with how we spend our time. Referring back to Covey's 4 quadrants, we've got to get better at spending time on things that are very important but are not urgent. If we're not careful, our day will go and it'll be gone, our week will be gone, our year will be gone, and we spend all of our time dealing with urgent things, but not the important, not urgent things. In fact, what will lead to the greatest success for you is when you get to spend more time on those things that are very important, yet they may not be urgent. For instance, maybe expanding your business. Well, that may not be urgent. There may not be anybody calling you every day saying, please expand your business. But you're going to have to carve out some time to do that non-urgent but very important thing. Conversely, a lot of the things that soak up our time as leaders are things that to somebody else it's urgent, but the truth is it probably really isn't that urgent and it's not important. So sales calls, I'm sure to that salesman or woman, like that phone call is very urgent and very important to them, but it should not be urgent for you. It is not important to you. And so we've got to get better and better at managing things that are urgent but not important so that we can spend more time on things that are not urgent and yet important. Also, when it comes time to prioritizing, a principle that's been very helpful for me is the 80-20 principle. The 80-20 principle tells us that about 80% of your results will come from 20% of your actions. It seems like it's like almost like a mathematical principle that seems true in many areas of life. If you look at the things that are really leading to your success or effectiveness, 80% of those results are coming from 20% of your actions. So as a leader, we need to ask ourselves, hey, how can we throw more fuel, more time on that 20% of my schedule that's actually producing results, and then cutting out that 80% of my time that's only producing 20% of my results. Another, for instance, maybe taking time in the morning to think about your day, to plan out your day ahead of time, that may be one of those 20% times that's producing 80% of your results. So how do we throw more fuel on that pre-planning fire, so to speak? Conversely, checking emails. This may be one of those things where emails, phone calls, responding to text after text after text. It may be 80% of your time, 80% of your energy, 80% of your mental focus, and yet it may only be leading to 20% of your effectiveness or results as a leader. So how can we start batching up our emails, like where you don't just handle emails when they come in, but before you go home in the evening, you batch up and you handle all of your emails, you return all your phone calls, you respond to all your important texts before you do it, before you go home for the day, instead of responding to every call, every text, every email as it gets in through the day. This would be an example of something that probably is taking up 80% of your attention and yet only producing 20% of your results. So as a leader who's looking at our habits because we want long-term sustained growth as a leader, we've got to spend more time on things that are producing results and spend less time on things that are actually holding us back. All right, next habit I want you to look at is, where are you doing things on your time, on your calendar? Let me explain what I mean. There are really two types of task you're going to have as a leader. There are what we'll call leadership or management task, and then there are just task. So in my experience, leadership and management tasks, these things take a lot more energy. They take a lot more creativity. They take a lot more mental focus. If you tell yourself that you want to start some sort of new initiative, or you want to find a way to improve your team, or you want to find a way to improve your effectiveness, these things require creativity. And for most people, your most creative time is in the morning. So do things that require a lot of creativity in the morning and give yourself plenty of time to do that. Conversely, there are other things that are tasks. Having a one-on-one meeting with somebody. Maybe it's a routine check-in, and while it requires some creativity, not all that much creativity. Many times, the most effective leaders take a lot of their one-on-one meetings and they do them in the afternoon. Why? Because in the afternoon, it's where you start slowing down a little bit. The other person may be slowing down a little bit as well. But when you're coming together to meet, both of you are doing the hard work of carrying that meeting forward. You don't have to do all the work in that meeting yourself. And so, hey, take creative time, put it in the morning, and then routine things, put those in the afternoon. The next habit I want you to look at is, how organized are you? There are, for many of us as leaders, we've got a lot of great ideas. We have things that we want to be successful at, and sometimes these things just get lost. Ideas that we had while, exercising in a gym, or the idea we had while we were driving to the office or whatever, they just get lost. Well, we've got to get organized. We need the habit of being organized. I want to give you 3 ideas on how to stay organized. Number 1, if it's not in writing, it's not real. You can say you have a plan, you can say you have an idea, but I'm convinced if it's not in writing, it's not real. Number 2, if it's not on the calendar, it ain't happening. If it's not on the calendar, it ain't happening. You can say you're going to start a new initiative that's going to make you or your team more effective, but if you've not put on your calendar when you're going to do your first action step, that plan, it's nebulous, it's just an idea, and if it's never put in writing, if it's not put on the calendar, it's most likely not going to happen. The third step in being organized is keep all of your notes in one place. Keep all of your notes in one place. Don't use, some app on your phone or smart device for some notes, and then another place for notes here, another place for notes there. Keep all of your notes in one place. So as a leader, if there's an observation you've made, a weakness that you'd like to fix, maybe you've seen an opportunity you'd like to capture, man, have all those notes in one place. So, for instance, part of this course, you've been given a digital booklet. Keep that digital booklet wherever you save all of your notes. If it's in printing, like like you actually have a journal where you keep your notes, man, print out that digital notebook, keep it with your notes. If you keep all of your notes in a digitized format, then save that PDF where you keep those, or print out your notes, make notes on your notes, take pictures of those, save it wherever you keep all of your notes. With time, if you're not careful, you'll have all of your notes in so many different places, you're forgetting a lot of the things you've learned. All right, next habit. How you do anything is how you do everything. Let me say that one more time. How you do anything is how you do everything. Now, we can say that we want to be leaders that really care about excellence and being competent. Well, how are you doing everything in your life? It's one thing to say that you want to be a great leader at the office, but how are you doing at being a great leader at home or in the community? You can say you want to lead others effectively, but how are you doing leading yourself? Now, the reality is there's not enough time to be awesome at everything. I'm sorry. You're going to have to, pick your battles, so to speak, but do so intentionally. Don't be sloppy on accident. Now, if you say like, hey, listen, I don't have the time or the energy to be excellent at the office and also be excellent at this hobby. So what am I going to do? I'm going to intentionally be excellent and disciplined at the office, and I'm intentionally going to give myself margin for error. I'm going to intentionally give myself the permission to be sloppy in my hobby. Why? Because that hobby is not a primary goal for me. That's something I like to do to unwind and relax. And if I'm not always disciplined, that's okay, because I've made the intentional decision not to always be excellent in that hobby. The purpose of that hobby is not to be excellent, it's to unwind. All right. So how you do anything is how you do everything. If you're going to be sloppy, if you're going to cut corners in certain areas, do it intentionally, not because you felt lazy that day. Which leads to the next habit. What you do on days when you don't feel like it are the greatest indication of how successful you'll become. If you're great at going to the gym on days where you feel like it, great, that's a good start. But how do you do at going to the gym on days when you don't feel like it? How do you do at being an effective leader on days when you don't feel like it? How do you do at being optimistic on days when you don't feel like it? We need to make a habit of being an effective leader even on days when we don't feel like it. That's another habit we need to work on. Next, the next habit, exercising and eating right. Our lives, man, things are interconnected, and the truth is, doing disciplined things are more difficult when you don't feel good. if you're feeling sluggish, if you ate a huge lunch, it's difficult to come back and be with the team and be creative with them. It's hard to give it your best when the truth is you need a nap because of how much you ate at lunch. Conversely, if you think leadership is difficult, you know that leadership is even more difficult when you're not taking care of your body. Most of the leaders that I've had the privilege of interacting with, the leaders who are really effective and great, they make taking care of their body a priority. Now, we've all been given different bodies, of course, and so I'm not saying what's easy for one person will be easy for the next person, but one thing that almost every effective leader, in fact, I would say every leader I've talked to says that, hey, listen, we need to make a priority to eat right, and we need to make a priority to exercise. These sort of things actually fuel creative thinking. These things fuel our endurance. These things fuel our attitude in a positive way. So if you're a little weak on how you take care of your body, this would be a habit we need to start working on immediately. The next habit is watch your self-talk. Every single one of us, we have like a little video playing in our mind. And sometimes this video or this audio in our mind is saying positive things, and sometimes it's saying really negative things. Here's what I want to give you permission as a leader. You don't have to listen to everything you tell yourself. As a leader, we've got to learn to start speaking to ourselves. We don't just listen to ourselves, we speak to ourselves. Our feelings, our emotions, they are absolutely important. I like to say that our feelings and our emotions, they make wonderful advisors, but they make horrible governors. Just because you're not feeling it today, just because you have some sort of feeling or thought that, hey, you're not good enough, you'll never be good enough. Hey, sometimes you need to say, time out, Tim, time out your name, and you need to start speaking truth to yourself. Be wise about this. Monitor how you talk to yourself, because if the voice inside your head is always telling you like, hey, this isn't worth it, you're not good enough, you'll never hit that goal. If your mind is saying negative things about other people, like, hey, they're not worth it, they're never gonna rise up, they're never gonna reach their potential, they have no potential. If you listen to that story long enough, you're absolutely going to start believing it. And if you start believing that story about yourself or other people, it's only a matter of time before your actions start showing that belief. Every action can find its root in some belief, and every belief can find its root in some thought in your mind. So we've got to be, as leaders, we've got to be intentional about the self-talk. Going back to our definition of leadership, leaders are those who intentionally influence someone or something. And I just want to remind you that that something, more times than not, will be you. You must intentionally influence yourself. And so we watch what we're thinking, what we're saying about ourselves, what we're saying about other people. And when some thought enters or an emotion or a feeling enters that is not helpful, we self-correct it. We speak the truth to it. And then the final habit I want us to look at is boundaries. Every good leader needs boundaries. I've heard it said that the more successful you become professionally, the quieter your private life needs to become. The truth is we all have limits. We all have a certain amount of energy. You cannot just be running as fast as you can 24/7, 365 days a year. We're going to have boundaries. And so I want you to start looking at the boundaries of your life. Are you always available by email? Are you checking email all the time? I have not met very successful leaders who do that. When they are out of the office, they turn that stuff off. Why? So that they can refresh. Great leaders realize that them sending emails throughout the evening is part of that 80% of their time and focus that produces 20% of their results. Instead, if they'll have good boundaries, when they're at home, they're at home. When they're enjoying their family, they're enjoying their family. When they're getting personal time, they're getting personal time. They're not taking a whole bunch of office phone calls and a whole bunch of emails. Why? Because those things would not have produced many results anyways. Instead, getting refreshed, getting a good night's sleep, waking up early, having a great morning routine, getting our most important things done first before we go into the office, that is the sort of habit, that's the sort of leadership behavior that actually only takes 20% of your time, but produces 80% of the results. So look at your boundaries. Look at your boundaries. Look at all of these habits. I know I just threw a lot of habits at you. Go back, relook at it, take notes, start improving habits. Again, remember, be teachable, listen, internalize, begin applying some of these things. In fact, I want to encourage you to take one of these habits we just discussed and go ahead and put it on your calendar that you're going to begin it tomorrow. The second thing we need to look at if we're going to improve what we do routinely is our commitment to growth. Any good leader is going to keep getting better and better and better. One reason we want to be committed to growth is so that we not only see leadership gains now, but that we see leadership improvement for the long haul. So how do we do that? Well, leaders are readers. It's a quote that you've heard if you've been interested in leadership for any period of time. I have found it to be true in my life. I've found it to be true with all of the great leaders that I've had a chance to work with and talk with. Leaders are readers. At any given time, an effective leader can probably tell you what they're learning from. Now, it doesn't have to just be a book, even though I love books and I encourage you to get a book on leadership or something that you want to become more competent at. But it could be online courses like this one. It could be formal education. It could be learning from a mentor or coach. Whatever you do, make sure that there's something you're learning from at any given time. When we talked about our morning routine earlier, one of the things that I try to do every day is to become more competent as a leader through reading or studying something online. Now, when it comes to mentors and coaches, I've heard that there's really 3 types of mentors you should get. You need to find somebody who can pour into you, somebody who you can learn from, somebody who can guide you, someone who can influence you. And those 3 types of leaders are this. The first kind of mentor you need is a mentor who's been around the block more than you have. You're going to find somebody who's been successful in more or less what you're trying to become successful with. Get around these people, soak up what they are saying. The second kind of mentor you need is a peer, somebody who's more or less at kind of the same stage you're in, but they're more successful than you are. So if you're trying to be better in the office, find somebody who's even more effective than you are, learn from them, be around them, soak up everything they're saying. The third kind of mentor you need is actually somebody who's younger than you, but they're more successful than you were at that stage. Maybe they're just a rookie when it comes to leadership, but they are already doing a better job than you did when you were a rookie. Be around these kind of people. Soak up what they're saying. In fact, being around this third category of mentors, they will keep you fresh. They'll keep you younger. So these 3 types, those who've been further than you are, those who are kind of where you are right now, but they're doing a little bit better job, and those who are younger, they're fresher in their leadership, but they're further along than you were at that point. Now, when you're meeting with a mentor, one of the best ways you can get the most out of those meetings is to pre-plan what you want to talk about with them. So if you arrange, let's say, a monthly phone call with a mentor, you've asked them if you could contact them, they said yes. One of the most effective things you can do is to write out 3 to 5 questions, send it to them ahead of time so that they can think through how to answer that. You want to spend time with these folks wisely. All 3 categories of these people who are successful, and they probably have full plates. They're probably very, very busy. While you might want to, have a little bit of small talk, you don't want to have much small talk with these folks. You really want to get to the point. Why? Because you're there, not necessarily to become best friends. You're there to be mentored. And so think ahead of really where you can learn most from them, write out the questions, and then send it to them ahead of time. Now, if they are able to open it beforehand and pre-plan their answers, all the better. But even if they have just opened it as soon as you guys get on a phone call or meet face-to-face, hey, that's okay too. At least you have pre-planned the questions you really want to learn from them on. Other ways to keep on learning, online courses. Of course, you're part of Leadership Rocket. You're already doing this. That's great. Find other things like this. Another creative idea on how to be committed to long-term growth is create a cohort. Reach out to a handful of folks who are doing similar work as yourself or folks who have interest in leadership Ask them if they'd like to get together, once a month. You guys read through books together, or each one of you lead a different session, during the different monthly meetings, something that you're competent on, you lead a session on that. If there's another man or woman in the cohort and they're competent at something, ask them to lead where they are competency at one of your monthly meetings. Learning to grow with others is a great way to jumpstart and to sustain your leadership improvement. There's something very valuable about having a group of people kind of in your tribe that you're growing with as leaders. If you have a leadership challenge one day, you can spend a lot of time, trying to read through or think through how to handle that. But if you can pick up the phone and call another competent leader and say, hey, have you ever dealt with something like this? Do you have any advice for me? You can save yourself a lot of time and energy. And quite frankly, you and them working together on a solution will probably be better than what you would have come up with on your own. So let's recap before moving into the third thing. As leaders, we need to improve what we do routinely. We need to take a close look at our habits, and we need to take a close look at our daily commitment to growth. And finally, let's look at this: a commitment to understand ourselves better and better. A self-aware leader is a better leader. Many of us, all of us as leaders, we have blind spots. There are areas where we are weak or we need some improvement that we're not aware of. Sometimes we don't look at ourselves appropriately. We think that we're better or worse than we really are. And so we need to keep working on our own self-perception. A few key ways that you can do this. One, we've already talked about it in a previous video. Ask for feedback from other people. Find somebody on your team. Say, hey, I'm not looking for compliments. I'm looking for cracks. I want to get better as a leader. What feedback can you give me? Well, we've already talked about doing that as a one-time on figuring out where you are so you can figure out the gap between where you want to be and where you are. Hopefully, you've already made some contacts. But now I'm asking you to stay committed to this. So find people on a regular basis and check in with them and ask them for honest feedback. Doesn't have to be every time you see them, but I would say, find people that you work with, people that you trust their opinion, maybe somebody who's already given you some good feedback in the past. And, I don't know, once a quarter, once a year at the least, ask them for those cracks, not the compliments. Another way of increasing your own perception on yourself is by taking the variety of personality tests. There's a lot of material out there, tests that can help you figure out what are your strengths, what are the things that make you passionate. Other tests that'll show you if you recharge with people or being alone. There's personalities that can tell you there are personality tests that can tell you, hey, here's some areas that you might need to look at. These may be areas where people who have similar personalities really struggle or they really thrive. Again, a self-aware leader is typically a more effective leader. So take advantage of some of these personality tests. And then the final area that I'd like to share with you on how you can increase routinely how you view yourself is a 360 assessment. Maybe you've had a 360 assessment before, maybe because you're just an intentional leader, or maybe because you had to at a place where you work. But a 360 assessment is this. There will be people who supervise you, people that you supervise, if that's appropriate, and your peers, maybe customers, maybe vendors, maybe contractors, depending on what kind of place where you work. And they will send an assessment to all these different types of people, and they'll ask for feedback on you. And you will receive a report that says like, hey, based upon all the feedback we received, we did a 360 review of all the sort of folks who have different interactions with you. Here are some strengths, here are some weaknesses, here's some opportunities. Well, there are professional companies that will do this for you, or you can check out your Leadership Rocket digital booklet for some questions that you can send to these sort of people. I'd encourage you to do so. Again, send these maybe in an email, a text message, call them, let them know that the message is coming their way. Tell them, I'm not looking for compliments, I'm looking for cracks. Send it to people that you supervise, if that's applicable to you. Send it to people that supervise you, again, if applicable. Send it to peers, send it to some of your customers, send it to people that maybe you just work with in other types of relationships. But try to get a 360 view of yourself. And here's why this is important. Because you could be crushing it with your peers. Maybe people love being your coworker, but the people that report to you, don't like it. They do not like working with you. Or conversely, maybe the people that you that work for you, they love you, but those that support you, you give them a headache. So we need to figure that out. That would be really helpful information to know if there was like a whole group of folks that really struggle with this. Again, a self-aware leader is a more effective leader. So I encourage you to either hire a company to do a 360 assessment on you, or look at the 360 questions that you can send to people in your Leadership Rocket digital booklet. So let's recap, and then we'll be done with this video. If we want to get better as leaders, we need to improve what we do routinely. We need to improve our habits. We need to improve our daily commitment to growth. And we need to improve how we routinely perceive ourselves. So remember, let's be teachable. Let's listen. Let's internalize what we talked about in this module, and then let's apply. Go ahead and start putting some action steps on your calendar of new habits or ways that you can grow or ways that you can better understand yourself. And let's start putting those on the calendar and acting on them and applying them immediately. I'll see you in the next video.